the thing that I think is really interesting when we talk about ADHD in relationships is that ADHD is both an externalized and internalized disorder. And so there are a lot of people who seemingly on the outside have their lives absolutely together, but internally are constantly struggling and are struggling in a way that they maybe even have a hard time articulating or a hard time navigating through. And so then you add the compounding difficulty of now I'm in a relationship with another person and we have give and take and we have compromise and we have all of this stuff. But it can be really difficult to even have the conversation about how does ADHD impact a relationship, because ADHD impacts every person with ADHD differently. Last night I stayed up till it was so embarrassing, like 4:45 in the morning sewing my costume for the Renaissance Festival because there was no husband to make me go to bed. And I was like, ha, I can do whatever I want. It's great.
This is how fiance Ryan finds me when he comes home, is that he knows that like I'll be up to something. There's an explanation, but he has no idea what he's about to walk into at any given moment.
Yes. He has come home to like full on scaffolding in the living room and he's just like, he'll just go, okay, and just like walk.
Well, I think, Jess, I was on the phone with you when I got it into my head that I would adjust the curtains in the living room.
Yes.
But I can't reach the curtains in the living room because I'm barely 5 feet tall. But that doesn't stop me.
Well, but you kind of can.
I kind of can't. Well, I can if I scale the back of the couch that I was balancing on. So I'm on the phone with Jess, balanced on the couch, adjusting the curtains, and I break the curtain rod. And so now I'm standing here with a half-broken curtain rod with the curtains about to fall on me, perched on the top of the couch, and I'm like, fuck. And I kind of just delicately yell for Ryan, and he comes downstairs, and the first thing he does he help me? No. Does he take a photograph? Yes.
You know what? I get it. I get it. I see it. I get it. That makes sense. I would honestly, I'd do the same thing probably.
So we should probably introduce Cate.
I was like, we should probably make a podcast. We'll talk. We'll hang out all day long.
So do I introduce you as Catieosaurus, Cate Osborn?
You could say Cate Osborn, also known as Catieosaurus, if you wanted. I'm not trying to tell you how to run your podcast, but that's usually what people find helpful.
I like everything you just said, so I will keep exactly what you just said.
Okay, cool.
I was like, that was a better intro than I could have done.
It's fine.
It had all the critical information.
The way that I have never once nailed an introduction or close, and I've been doing this for like almost I guess like 6 years now, almost a decade. But yeah, I've never once gotten it like good. So you're fine, I promise.
We're also going to need the general description of things currently done in the world. I know author is one of them.
Yeah.
I'm going to
best-selling author.
A best-selling author. Look, instead
bravo,
of my face,
bravo, congratulations.
It's the book.
That's so good. I love that. Oh my God, pom-poms. Oh my God, those were my school. Is that blue? Is that navy blue? That was my
It was
school
the
colors.
closest thing to monochrome my stepmom could find because they don't sell cheerleader pom-poms in Serbia. So I had to have them imported.
That's tragic, actually.
She searched for 2 weeks.
They don't have
for black
cheerleader
and gray
pom-poms in Serbia.
No.
Why?
What do they use in Serbia when they want to cheer on the basketball team?
Flares, politically incorrect signs that sometimes describe the war crimes perpetrated by NATO, and these signs are not incorrect.
Cool.
And you do the content creation around the same subjects.
I'm an author. I am a content creator. Specifically, I'm a certified sex educator, and I can now legally say that I'm also a PhD candidate. So that's kind of weird and crazy. And so I talk about the intersection of ADHD and neurodivergence. You could also say that I'm currently on a national speaking / comedy. I feel like the word comedy is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence, but national tour with my first solo show. So that's all going on. It's a lot. There's a lot. Podcaster. I don't know. What, just She does stuff on the internet. That's fine.
That's a lot of happenings. Wait,
Right?
so where are you doing your PhD, and what's is the focus of your research like neurodiversity, sexuality?
Yeah. So it's gonna be like right in the intersection with what I'm super duper excited about. And I think what's really cool is that it is looking like there's gonna be this is a secret, don't tell anybody. But it is looking like there's going to be a book 2. And so what it's looking like is that I'm going to be able to use book 2 as fundamentally my dissertation for the program.
Jess is concerned and excited.
So I'm very, very excited about that. It's going to be kind of cool and interesting. My secret is that I've been going around and like 100 to 300 people at the time, I've been telling them that book 2 is going to happen. So my plan is I'm just going to sort of like guerrilla market my way into having a successful second book by just being like, don't tell anybody, just over and over and over again. So
that's phenomenal.
That's
and I also
plan.
love that I saw Jess immediately go, is actual secret or colloquial secret?
Colloquial. I feel like it's a colloquial. I feel like it's a colloquial secret. Colloquial. Oh my God. Hold on. Okay, so I keep a list of things that would be good band names, and I need to put colloquial secret on the 2026 list. You're right underneath Rebellious Olives.
Excellent.
Colloquial
That's a good
secret
visual.
in the Rebellious Olives.
I mean, I've got a ukulele handy. That's the only thing for this situation.
I have a waterproof ukulele, and it's the best thing. It's right
Tell
there.
me more
Okay,
about...
hold on. I'm going to show you my ukulele. This ADHD podcast starts with, let me show you my ukulele. It's on brand.
It's waterproof.
So it's from this brand called the Outdoor Ukulele Company. And so it's entirely made of like waterproof material. So you can so I got it because I was working at a Renaissance festival as a washing well wench. And so I was concerned that if I had it and then I could jump in the pool but still have the ukulele. And so that's my waterproof ukulele.
I loved in your book. I was just like, I just looked at your book and was just like, I love that you like balance between being like disorder, dysfunction, deficit, superpower, like all of the like ways that we could describe it. And I was just like, it does depend on perspective, but I was thinking about how ADHD specifically looks so different from the outside than how it feels on the inside so often. And I like that, like, especially in like the relationship section, you captured that thing. I'm making this gesture for whatever that thing is of like the internal experience as opposed to external perception.
That's a hyperactive version of the claw machines.
It's also when I went to college, it was also a batten, like a lighting batten. Anyway, we should actual real answer. I get so distracted immediately. I was like, yes,
shiny clickies.
A relevant story. Here's a professional podcast answer for you. Yeah, I mean, the thing that I think is really interesting when we talk about ADHD and relationships is that ADHD is both an externalized and internalized disorder. And so there are a lot of people who seemingly on the outside have their lives absolutely together, but internally are constantly struggling and are struggling in a way that they maybe even have a hard time articulating or a hard time navigating through. And so then you add the compounding difficulty of now I'm in a relationship with another person and we have give and take and we have compromise and we have all of this stuff. But it can be really difficult to even have the conversation about how does ADHD impact a relationship because ADHD impacts every person with ADHD differently. Some of us are amazing at being on time. Some of us are amazing at communication. Some of us are absolutely terrible at it. And so in writing the book, something that was really, really important to me was that I really wanted to offer as many perspectives as possible and approach the book with the sense of not every section is going to be relatable to every single person. Not every discussion is going to be relevant for every single person. But including it felt important because when it comes to relationships, even if you aren't the person struggling, your partner might be the person struggling. And so yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a million different ways to talk about ADHD. There's a million different ways to approach ADHD. But at the end of the day, whatever the approach, it has to be wildly and specifically individualized for every person who is coming to the conversation, if that makes any sense at all.
It absolutely does. And I've the most recent weird factor in my life, there's the like way my brain is wired factors. There's the homeschooling. There's the significant career as a publicly sexualized persona. But the most recent one, I moved to Serbia 4 years ago, and it's not that nobody in this country believes in ADHD or autism. It's that mostly they don't. And if they do, they're still in the like, well, I mean, that hardly ever happens to girls. And also, you're not a complete obvious, like, you're looking me in the eye right now. You're obviously fine.
Yeah.
So I personally, in this context, have found that the fact that I don't bring up the particular keyword because it's meaningless here forces all of us into a position where we just have to deal with me specifically.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, I have this thing where if there's 3 different kinds of noises from 3 different directions, my brain cannot understand words as words in either language.
Yep.
So we can vibe or we can go somewhere else to talk.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's that has been a really interesting, especially because the book is being translated into different languages, and is, being sold in different countries around the world. And yeah, the sort of international breakdown of attitudes around ADHD is a really fascinating conversation in and of itself. Because I think that we have a real privilege in the US in terms of the fact that, we are studying it, and we are there is an awareness of how things like disability rights and disability access is important for, like the neurodivergent community. But in some other countries, kind of like you just named, Jess, like there really are, like, there's still a lot of very stigmatized beliefs and like a lack of understanding. And I don't think it comes from a bad place or, like a place of ill will. I think it just comes from the place that the way that other cultures approach things like behavior and politeness and getting along with each other, like all of those things are very much couched in how ADHD shows up. And so it's really interesting kind of studying how other countries talk about and treat and discuss ADHD, because a lot of it has to do with like cultural differences more than anything else. And I think that's just like really cool.
Well, I found that like my time blindness didn't matter that much in other contexts. And by the way, like when you were talking about it in context of relationship and being able to communicate with someone about your needs and things like that, like my fiance does not have ADHD. He has been touched by the tism. And so we are the classic combo. And so like he had to go to the soundstage today, and he usually is the one who actually helps me with mornings because I am just not smart for the first 2 hours of the day, no matter what I do. I'm awake.
Big same.
But I'm just kind of like, And so he was worried because he's like, oh my God, I have to be on the soundstage, but you have to be in your studio at 11, which is approximately 2 hours after you naturally wake up. And I was just like, I'm going to aim for 10:30. And he was just like, how can I help you with that from afar? Because every intervention I can think of, it would be on your phone. And then you'd pick up your phone.
Yep.
And we all know what happens if you do that. And so what we agreed on was like, okay, like I'm gonna text you when I wake up. So that way I have a point of contact. And I was just like, and then I'm going to text you when I get into my studio spot. Like it's like the back house of our house. I was just like, so that way you'll know that I made it. But last night he like made me overnight oats. I had my cold brew. I picked out my outfit because I was just like, okay, so reading Cate's book. Cate's really good with time. Oh, and I also like tested my audio yesterday when I was in here working on music. Nice. I was like, I'm going to set everything up. Because last time when it was just me and Jess podcasting, for some reason my gear was like, you must reset everything. For what reason?
Hate it when that
no
happens.
one knows.
Oh, that's the worst.
And I felt terrible.
also feel like it just knows. Like, I feel like it just knows. Like, whenever
It
you're
just
trying to
knows.
like actually get something done, or like you're like the one day that you're like running a little bit late, that's the day that like your printer won't ever print. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like that's a fact of the ADHD universe.
My partner, before he left to like eat food and watch the air sports ball, he was like, so how long is the podcast going to take? And I'm like, well, that depends on a lot of factors. And he's like what? And I'm like, well, am I going to have the PMS poops? Is someone else going to have the PMS poops? Are we going to start on time? There's a third person from the book. She seems like she's really on time, but is someone's equipment? And he's like, oh, it's Pam. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, it's you and Pam. I can just, turn all the lights off.
I'll see you in like 7
okay.
eons.
Right. See you tomorrow. Bye.
And like when I'm amongst my people, or even when I was weirdly when I was in Iceland, the very first time I went to interview people at Iceland Airwaves for my podcast, where actually I met Jess for Why Not Both, where I was interviewing multi-passionate humans. But I forgot a very important cable that connected, in fact, my microphone to my computer.
Oh no!
And I was in like, how do I communicate with people in Icelandic about a USB that has a little mini USB at the end? Like, what? And so that is how I met a fellow musician there that I'm still friends with, because I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And I was supposed to interview him later. So I was like, okay, like I know he DJs at this bar. Let me go to this bar. So I go to this random bar and I'm just like, hello, person that I've never met. Can you help me connect my microphone to my computer so I can conduct my other interviews? And he's like, when? And I was like, kind of now, because I'm supposed to be interviewing like the director of music at Harpa currently. Like,
that goes hard, actually.
I'm like,
You're like, no big deal.
Yeah, I was just like, no pressure, it's fine. And he was just like, let me look through my cable bag. And he like finds something, and I was like, oh my God, I'll give it back to you right after. He's like, it's cool. And like I show up at Harpa, and like this guy that I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry I'm late. He's like, do you want to walk around? Do you want to see like the and I was like, yeah. So like everyone was just real cool with things just sort of happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is good. This is nice. This is relaxing for Pam.
I've heard that a lot, actually. Like, I've heard a lot of ADHDers who leave kind of like American corporate capitalism culture and they find themselves in other places. I have heard, again, like colloquially, like, anecdotal evidence that a lot of them do tend to do a lot better because there's not the same sort of like pressure on like always doing, always making, always working in other places. And I don't know, I think about that a lot. I think about that 100% of every day. And I'm like, what would happen if I did that? What would happen? I don't know. I think about that a lot. I'm like, maybe I don't need to do all this all the time.
Then when you add like the cultural exception that artists, people who work in creative fit, like they just sort of expect you to be kind of chaotic and goblin-y and, and so it has led me to a perspective of the way the disability justice movement talks about disability being sort of a conversation between the needs of the person and what society is set up for.
Yeah. Oh, like the
and
societal
like,
norms
totally.
and mores?
You put me in a different society and I'm way less of a constant, friction all over the place.
Yeah.
My brain, of course, leaped from context to context of like cultural norms to then then my brain went smaller where I'm like family norms. Then I was like, oh, like dyadic norms. And so I was like, oh, even the norms of how we communicate within like pair bonds. Welcome to my brain. And so I was thinking about like in the book, like you were describing the different like sensory needs that one could have in like a more sexual or intimate context. And I was thinking about how within like the dyads I've had, or even within my friend groups, it's really normalized to talk about those things, both in a sexual and non-sexual context, and how it's really difficult for me to think about like that other people don't talk about that. And then I'm like, that noise.
Yeah, that's one of the like the hardest things about writing a book for like a broad community, right? Because I cannot imagine being friends with people who like would insist on going to like Buffalo Wild Wings, like the most, where there's like 47 TVs on the wall and they're all playing something different at top volume, and then there's like me, like, you know what I mean? Like I cannot imagine that, because like I have really cultivated partnerships and friendships and relationships that are full of supportive, understanding, people who get like we all have different sensory needs. But then also, I read every message I get. I read every email that I get. And I hear from, like, not even exaggerating, tens of thousands of people every single week/month, um, who say things like, I can't possibly imagine, asking even like my partner for the kind of touch I want. I can't imagine articulating my sensory needs. I can't imagine this because I would feel so uncomfortable. It would be so difficult. It would feel so scary. It would feel so vulnerable. And so then the question kind of becomes like, how do you write a book for both of those people? How do you write a book that encapsulates, like, of course you are able to do this, but of course you are also not able to do this. And I never want it to seem judgy. I never want it to seem like I am commenting on someone who struggles with that, because I was one of those people. I was one of those people who struggled for years and years and years. I was a person who struggled. And then slowly over time, like, I kind of found my voice and I found the tools and the skills that I needed to begin articulating better. And so it's like I've been in both worlds, and so that's kind of what I wanted to bring was the sort of, we have in the book. I know you guys read it, but for people who might have not, there's a character in the book that is called the Tough Love Pterodactyl, whose name is canonically Pateri, the Tough Love Pterodactyl. And so we kind of created Terry as the sort of conduit by which sometimes the tough love comes out, because I was uncomfortable being like, no, but it's really important that you learn how to ask, like, no, but this is like vital to your relationship happiness, and no, if you actually want to be in fulfilling relationships, you have to learn how to use your words, because I don't know, I don't want to sound judgy about it, but Terry sure is, so it's fine.
But I am Terry. I have a bit of the tism, and I'm a quarter Serbian ethnically, and I live in Serbia, and I was homeschooled. So I'm constantly Terry, sometimes when it's not helpful. And the use your words, yes, and words don't have to literally be words, and they definitely don't have to literally be words coming out of your mouth.
Exactly.
That you gotta communicate it effectively, but literally, if you can do that in an interpretive dance, go for it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Whatever the thing is that is accessible.
Yeah, that is genuinely one of my favorite things to talk about, is communicating about communication. I think is one of my favorite sort of topics. And it's also, it's funny, I do a lot of like live classes and workshops and that kind of stuff, especially in like kink and BDSM contexts. And it is the workshop that I consistently see melt the most brains over and over and over, is my going, you don't have to talk. You don't got to talk. You don't got to talk about anything. You could write an email. You could have a ongoing Google Doc that is just, here's how my brain works. You could have a form. I know people who have literal binders. I know literal people who have literal binders that are just like, here are my sensory needs, and they will just hand it to the person. You can text, like, however the communication feels best and works best in your body. That is the way to have that conversation. Like, I can't have serious conversations in stillness. This was something that took me a very long time to figure out, is I have to be able to like somatically process. And so serious conversations are had on walks around the park.
Yes.
So communicating about communication, I think, is one of the things that we talk a lot about in the book. And just about like words Like, I always feel like such like a weird fucking mountain man. Like, words mean things. But you know, I think we talk about this specifically in the book, but things like, what does clean mean? Like, if I say, hey, can you clean the
Mm.
kitchen? What series of tasks am I actually asking you to complete if I ask you to clean the kitchen? And if your version of cleaning the kitchen is like doing the dishes and maybe sweeping the floor, and my version of cleaning the kitchen is, you know, taking everything out of the refrigerator and scrubbing every single shelf and disinfecting all the countertops and then mopping the floor, you know, and then I come home and I say, why haven't you cleaned the kitchen? And you said, but I did clean the kitchen. And now we're in a fight. But we both were just operating under the assumption that cleaning has the same understanding. But that's everything. That's sex, that's intimacy, that's touch, that's every facet of a relationship. Is something that you can very meticulously and minutely communicate about. And yeah, you never have to use your words. You can do it so many different ways.
For instance, if I'm having a deeper emotional conversation, or if I'm saying something that's actually really important to me, if I make eye contact, I'm immediately distracted.
Yep.
Um, and so I have difficulty then expressing it well. And literally, Ryan, my human, is the only person ever that I've enjoyed eye gaze with. I never really got the like eye gaze thing, but he and I sometimes will just be like, it's eyeballs time. And like and so when we're having serious talks, sometimes we have to avoid actually looking at each other because otherwise we'll be like, yeah, and then
I used to like, I don't know. I went to school for theater. And it's weird how much of that is often like co-opted for like acting spaces as well. Like there was so much like eye gaze bullshit that like they made us do in grad school, and it was just like it was so viscerally uncomfortable for me. And I remember, especially because in grad school I still didn't know that I was neurodivergent. I just was like, oh, I must just be a weird little guy. And I would get so uncomfortable, and then I would always just think, "Oh, well, there must be something wrong with me. Like, there must be like I'm a like, you know, I spent a weirdly long time thinking I was like a sociopath or something because I was just like, why don't I like looking at people? Couldn't
I feel
possibly
like
be a
everybody goes through, whether they're getting an undergrad in psychology or end up being diagnosed with something that is never sociopathy.
yeah,
Everybody goes through a can like a qualified professional check me for
Can an
sociopathy?
event
Oh
as a
no.
psychology student where I
No,
was just like, I was like, why do I not like this? Like, why is it so aversive to me? And then I'm like, I definitely went through like a Fey changeling phase
yeah.
as a child where I was like, I must have been swapped with some other creature at birth. Like, none of this makes any sense.
Man, you want to know? I was also like, for real, I'm adopted. And so, like, man, that was some shit. I was like, there's this book that this is such a dumb story, but there's this book that my mom got me that's called Actually, I Used to Be a Princess. And it was about this like girl, and she's like convinced that like she, you know, whatever. But it was kind of a book about adoption, but it was like not a good book about adoption.
That sounds like a
Um,
traumatizing book about adoption
and
with good intention behind
and it
it.
was like, and I think it was just supposed to be like a fun, like, oh, this like little kid is like imagining that she used to be a princess or whatever, but like obviously it's not true. But like I was an autistic child who didn't understand things, and so I was like, oh, clearly I must be like a magical fae changeling child, and I
My
was
mother has
adopted.
sent me a breadcrumb.
Right,
I
I
must
was like,
follow the
"Ah,
trail.
it's a sign." So goofy.
Oh my god.
That's amazing.
So good.
So, sexuality and relationships. When I moved here, I had been coming here for long chunks of time for several years. And the same month that I moved, a whole bunch of Russians showed up. But the poly and kinky developed really like isolated from the Western poly kinky I am familiar with. And it was a huge shock to me to understand they don't talk. It's almost entirely reading body language successfully, one hopes. I mean, sometimes it fails, and opt out consent.
As opposed to opt-in consent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. reading body language as I
Immediately
I
I
don't
got
think I do
stressed.
so well at that.
Serbs are mostly in the middle. And one of my friends, like a year ago, saw some reel on Instagram that was like making fun of American sexual progressives. And it's like two people sit down and they start negotiating if there's consent to negotiate. And then, like,
Like The Good Place, but for sex.
Yeah. And they're like, is this accurate? And I'm like, well, it's accurate in the sense that it is a blown up version in order to be humorous. But yeah, no, like the New York queer kinky poly, they discuss everything ahead of time. And I don't know, the Russian method does kind of terrify me, because what if a person does not signal in standard body language and facial expression? And what if a person has, significant difficulty interpreting? But then it started me thinking, a lot of the time we use words in these American English language negotiations. Like, I like hard impact. Great. That can mean everything from so you actually feel it through to you want broken skin and bruises that last for a very long time. And then what about the, weaponization of, well, they seemed like they were having a good time, but then the language can also be weaponized in the sense of, well, I didn't hear them say no, or I coerced them into giving verbal consent. I got them to say the magic phrase. Right?
That sounds like extraordinarily confusing, because
Yeah.
we'd be like, I saw the thing, but did I see the thing? Did I imagine did I make a story about the thing? What is the thing? And then it's like, time passed. Like, and so I liked in your book with the sensory breakdown, but then like talking with people about like what you like, is that I like that I can basically design a space in my home and show people and have them experience sensorially like what I enjoy. And then it can be like, do you enjoy this? Yes, no. Are there any like things that you would want to shift around? But I don't have to say like, I don't like big light, because big light is simply not an option.
I'm resolutely anti big light. Hold on, sorry. I'm remember. Was there a question? Was I supposed to answer something? I lost track of the plot.
It was a
through.
segue. It was a
Okay,
segue about me
I just was like,
complimenting you on the sensory aspect
did
of your
I
book.
miss a thing? And then I was like, oh no, was I supposed to be answering a question? I got really self-conscious. I was thinking about Russians. Mostly. I was thinking about Russians, and then I was like, wait, fuck, was there a question?
Ooh, what were you thinking about
I
Russians?
think about Russians all the time.
So I don't know if I'm supposed to tell this story or not, but it's fine. But so the book was supposed to get published in Russia. We were in conversations about having the book published in Russia because, again, like Russia is another place where there's not a lot of education around ADHD. And so we were approached. But the problem was that because of like the political climate in Russia, in order to be able to publish the book, they were going to make us take out the section around like LGBTQ stuff. They were going to make us take out the section around like trans and non-binary folks. There was going to have to be like a lot of changes, like oversaw and supervised by the Russian government. And so we kind of were like, nah, we're not gonna, no. But I did, because we were really on the fence. We were really on the fence about it because I don't know, there was like part of it was like, okay, well, if we do that, then like, are we like supporting the Russian government? But I also think it's important to be able to like give people access to education when they don't have it other places. And so I thought it would be the most punk rock fucking thing in the whole world to smuggle in resources for like trans and non-binary people under the guise of a book about ADHD. But then we immediately got caught, and so they were like, you have to take that part out. So we opted to not publish in Russia.
I have a middle option. If it's too duct tape or not profitable for you, please, you will not hurt my feelings. The people who translated and published my book in Russian, which is entirely about sex. It's just,
Nice.
it's all about sex. And
Nice.
some of it's queer sex, and some of it's BDSM sex, and a lot of it's commercial sex.
I think like it's because we did publish through Simon and Schuster. There's a lot of like legality and stuff that like we have to go through, but I do really appreciate it. That goes really hard. But yeah, it was really funny. I was like, I never thought like we were actually like in the middle of like facing down like the fact that like we might have published a banned book, you know, because like there's places where like they really don't want stuff around like trans and like just like LGBTQ as like a whole in like libraries, like school libraries and that kind of thing. And so it's like I might be the author of a banned book, which I think is kind of fun.
Which is extremely badass.
Right? I was like, I'm gonna make that my whole personality for a couple weeks. Like that's fine.
That should be part of your intro for the rest of your career.
Hi,
I'm an author of a potentially banned book.
I'm best-selling banned book author. I feel like I would say banned book before best-selling. I feel like that's like even more impressive. Like,
it really is.
Banned.
There's a whole tarot deck that I gave to a friend of mine that's the banned book tarot deck.
Oh, that's like, cool.
Yeah. I saw it and I was like, oh, this is deeply exciting. Like,
nice.
Well, because even thinking about the content that you just mentioned, when clients ask me for recommendations for ADHD and the tisms and sex, there's not many out there.
There's like two of us.
Yeah. And so I'm just like, thank you for doing that. Because so much of the information that I end up sharing with my clients, to me, like I said, my sample is skewed. My environment is skewed. I'm used to talking about these things all the time. And so like when people come to me with queries about this or a lot of shame and a lot of different stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a whole world of information to share.
I get like so that's like one of the things that I genuinely struggle with the most is that I've gotten so spoiled by being in my bubble where I can just talk about, you know, kink and BDSM and sex and whatever like freely. I did something very interesting, which is that I joined a bunch of local community Facebook groups, like where like all the boomers hang out. And it is like, and it's honestly, it is a really interesting exercise. It is a really interesting exercise because people will go on there and they will ask, you know, every so often you get like a question about ADHD or whatever. And the attitudes and the opinions and the way that people talk about neurodivergence and autistic kids or kids with ADHD or whatever, it is a constant reminder that for as much as sometimes I feel like I am just constantly repeating myself, like I feel like I just make the same video every single day, like Groundhog Day style. But the attitudes, the beliefs that we hold, even in our like fairly open-minded, you know, American culture, they are very damaging. They are very damaging and they are very hurtful. And there is a lot of stigma and there is a lot of judgment around stuff that just people so very clearly just do not understand, nor have they ever taken the time to get curious about. And so, yeah, so I don't know, like it's really validating and it's really interesting to see, I don't know, to have that kind of like glimpse into like what like outside of my bubble kind of believes about these things. Because yeah, there's some wild shit.
Can I do a little bit of validating from the other direction?
Oh, sure, please.
One of my clients this week, they have ADHD, and I was like, yeah, there's this book that I read a couple days ago because the author is going to be hold on, let me get you that. And I'm like, you know, and Cate, and the client goes, oh my God, Catieosaurus. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, was it a good book? And I'm like, well, aside from the typography party that was put there on purpose for one type of brain, slowing me down, no notes except bravo.
Hilariously, it made my Zoomy go even faster. I read the book in like 3 hours.
The lost lore drop is that the book was supposed to be in color. And that is why it looks the way that it does, was because originally the book was supposed to be in color, and then somewhere along the line they decided that it was going to be too expensive to publish in color, and so they downgraded it to black and white. And I do really truly feel like it was the biggest loss of the entire book, because it was color coded. Like everything was like color coded, and it was going to be so much like so vibrant and like dopamine-y and like
Jess
easy
is
to read.
With
And
excitement and unblinking
and
at this
then
concept.
they
Horror?
made the decision that it was just not going to be feasible, and I will die disappointed about that, because I really do wonder how much better the book would have done if it would have been in
It
color.
was in color.
So I'm willing to take a massive pay cut and fight to the death, because book 2 is absolutely going to be in color. I will not let it get published without color.
I think in color would much, much further serve your aim of helping people who have a hard time sitting down and reading a whole book stay engaged. But for book 2, because I am going to need to read book 2,
I'm so excited
I'm
about it.
going to have to buy it, pay someone else to transcribe it
In
into
grayscale.
one font size, black and white.
I'll tell you what, I will personally send you a Microsoft Word document of just the book.
Thank you so much.
I will make a note. I will put it on my calendar, like send to Jess. You want like time? You want Arial? Do you want Times New Roman? What do you need? What do you need, baby? I got you.
As long as it's not Comic Sans or Papyrus, I don't care.
The whole thing.
No wingdings.
What was that?
No
SNL
wingdings.
sketch. Papyrus.
Yeah. And so then I was like, client, may I please read you some quotable quotes? And they were like, I recognize that from Catieosaurus's content. And I'm like, great. Does it help to hear it a second time from a different mouth and face?
I mean, I feel like if I put my hair down and like somebody took off their glasses, we're basically the same person in a different font. It's fine.
There we go. There we go.
Oh, I'm honored. Yeah, but just the sheer excitement, enthusiasm on this client's face that this book exists, and also they were like, "Oh no, that'll totally not interrupt my reading capacities." I'm like, awesome. I love that. It's out now.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Neuroprovocateurs. Please join us on Substack, where you can find exclusive clips, resources, and community of the neurospicy variety. We are an independent podcast, so know that your support on Substack and beyond means the world to us, quite literally. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to leave us 5 stars and glowing reviews, and follow our podcast on your preferred podcast platform so that you can be sure to get each episode the moment it drops, and know that your reviews help us get in front of other people who might also want to listen to this podcast. We are on social media in all of the usual places as Neuroprovocateurs. Thank you again, and excited to see you for our next episode.